With the news here on Headlines today, I'm Shiv Arur. Narendra Modi's crucial meeting with top American CEOs has begun in New York. A group of 11 CEOs, including Google's Eric Schmidt, Pepsi Co's CEO Indra Nooyi, Citigroup's Michael Corbat, Mastercard CEO Ajay Banga and other bigwigs are meeting with Narendra Modi at this time. These high-profile meetings come at a time when the Modi government is attempting to galvanize India's position in the world as a global manufacturing hub. India is open for business is the message that the Prime Minister is carrying. This platform will enable global investors to seek answers over pressing issues such as roadblocks and policy hurdles. Modi will be looking at eliminating investor fears by giving them a blueprint about foreign direct investment in multi-brand retail and fast-paced clearances that his administration has promised. Let's go straight across to Headlines Today's managing editor Rahul Kamal live with us from New York City. Rahul, the spectacle of Madison Square Garden still reverberating. Today it was down to brass tacks with that high-profile meeting that Narendra Modi had with the world's top CEOs in New York City. Google, Pepsi Co, Boeing, Citibank, Mastercard, several other companies as well. The simple, clear message from Narendra Modi is India is open for business and waiting.
Well, Shiv, yesterday we saw rockstar Modi in full form. Today is the day for salesman Modi to take over. And understand that the mood amongst corporate America is not as rara India as it is amongst the Indian American community. Several of the corporate leaders who are here at this breakfast meeting at the New York Palace Hotel are cautiously optimistic, they say. They're optimistic because in Modi they see a man with whom they've done business with in the past. They see a political leader who has the courage to ensure that business has a smooth ride and whatever impediments emerge can be dealt with. The regulatory hassles, the delays in permission, they believe could be a thing of the past. But remember, several of these big American companies have been struggling to do business with India for the last couple of years.
Yes.
They've lost money, they've had regulatory hassles, they've had delayed decision making. So these, after the breakfast meeting, Shiv, there's a round of one-on-one meetings with several of these top business leaders and big investment houses. And in that, they will be explaining to Modi what their concerns are on defense, on infrastructure, on finance. What is it that they'd like to see in terms of regulatory assurances, regulatory guarantees. And salesman Modi then has the responsibility of trying to reach out to them and convince them to come make in India.
And the impetus is already there, is it not, Rahul? You know, the administration has sent out a message already about the manner in which the atmosphere is being created to create a huge amount of confidence for investors, for business, for commerce and trade. So his meeting with CEOs, you know, personally reaching out across the table in this manner, and we've got those pictures on our screen, is bound to create a kind of personal bridge between Prime Minister Modi and every one of these CEOs, because they always, when they are in India, you know, they try and, you know, get a little bit of time with Modi. Here he is across the table, personally reaching out to them.
Good morning to everybody.
Well, first and foremost, the seriousness with which American business is taking the Prime Minister's meeting is visible from the fact that the heads of each of these corporates is meeting Modi himself. They haven't sent representatives, they're all here for these one-on-one meetings. But there is a big difference between, say, Japan, China and the United States.
Yes.
In Japan, Shinzo Abe can say, we'll have $35 billion of investment over the next 5 years. Xi Jinping can promise 20 billion. Obama can't even promise 100 million because he has to somehow, Modi has to reach out to these corporate leaders, their boards, and convince each one of them individually. Each one has different requirements, each one is in a different sector, each one has different problems. He has to convince each one of them to come back and invest in the India story, and that's the key challenge because they've lost confidence in the India story. India was seen as a bright emerging economy in the early 2000s, then it lost steam, lost momentum. Now salesman Modi's task is to create confidence in that product once more, and what gives him extra confidence is
Yes.
the fact that people can see his track record in Gujarat and say, okay, he delivered in Gujarat, now can he deliver across India?
And you know, Rahul, you've spoken to a spectrum of business leaders, both small and big. You've also spoken to several US congresspersons, and we've played out some of those, those views here on Headlines Today across yesterday and today. what is the sense you're getting? As you very importantly pointed out, it's not a lot of rah-rah Modi from the business community. The business community will be looking for profit, for opportunities, for there not to be any kind of economic uncertainty. So what is the larger sense you're getting? I know it's very early to, pinpoint precisely what the sentiment really is, but what's the overall sense you're getting when you're speaking to people who are looking to do business with India?
See, the sense in the State Department, the sense in the people that we've been speaking to is that they want to use India as an important player in Asia, given the fact that China is the emergent world superpower that imperils America's hegemony as the sole global superpower. An attempt is being made to try and weave India into a global axis against China. India, Japan, the United States, Australia coming together against China is the way that the United States at some level would like to see it. But India has huge concerns about that, because remember, we have almost a 4,000 kilometer border with China. Several parts of that border are disputed. We can't have China thinking of us as an adversary, so India doesn't want to fall into that trap, at least geopolitically. India wants to keep the door open for business, for trade, for cooperation, both with China and with the United States. So that's a balancing act that Prime Minister Modi needs to traverse, and that's what he'll attempt to do. As far as the congressmen and senators are concerned, the one thing that gives us confidence is the fact that the India caucus across the Senate and the US Congress has 42 members. I'm told it's the biggest caucus of any country. There's a caucus for Israel, there's a caucus for China, there's a caucus for Pakistan, several other countries as well. The India caucus on Capitol Hill is the biggest caucus at this time. Several of the key senators and congressmen, senior-most senators and congressmen are driving the India caucus. That shows that there is bipartisan support. Remember, there are big elections in the United States in about a month from now. The balance of power in the Senate could shift towards the Republicans, and if that happens, it'll be difficult for President Obama to push through any move or any bill that helps India. But given the fact that there is bipartisan support, given the fact that both Republicans and Democrats believe that India is a strategic partner, remember, they don't like the word ally, that is something that gives Modi extra thrust. And I must say this, Shiv, yesterday's meeting at Madison Square Garden charged up these congressmen and senators because they saw something that they would have never dreamt of. Joe Crawley, whom we spoke to, said, I can fill up Madison Square Garden only in my dreams. I don't believe that a leader can come from outside the United States, fill it up, have as many people outside as there are at Times Square, 18,000 people inside. He says, here's a man who clearly has the goodwill, the backing of 1.2 billion people, 1/6 of humanity, and that gives Modi the thrust, the push, as he heads towards Washington for his big meeting with the Obamas. And I must tell you on a side note, at this time there are officials of the MEA out, Shiv, looking for a gift for the little Clinton who was just born. Hillary and Bill Clinton will be coming to meet the Prime Minister at 11, about 4 hours from now, and they're out looking for a gift because that happened suddenly. So they're now trying to find an appropriate gift to give Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Well, I'm sure they'll find something appropriate. That is New York City after all. Rahul, continue to stay with us. I just want to read out the message, the underlying message that's been sent out by Prime Minister Modi at that meeting with the CEOs that Rahul's been bringing us those inputs on. India is open-minded. We want change that is not one-sided. It's a generous message, but it's a message that's important to note. Change that is not one-sided. I want to bring in my colleague, Shweta Punj, senior editor with Business Today, who's also with me, to make sense of what happens from now on. Shweta, huge amount of visual spectacle. A lot of people are sort of mesmerized by Narendra Modi there, what he's made possible in terms of all that public adulation. It's down to business now, sitting across the table with those CEOs. People like Indra Nui, Eric Schmidt, the CEOs of Amazon and all these companies, they're not new to India. They've done business in India for many, many years, if not decades together. They know what success and failure in India is. These are people who know the ins and outs of doing business and investing in India perhaps better than anybody else. So what specifically will they be looking for in terms of Modi's message? His message is clear, but what will they be looking for, Shweta?
Absolutely, Shiv. I think the real test begins now for Narendra Modi. Yes, a spectacular show yesterday, no doubt. But let's not forget that the American businessmen are very hard-nosed.
Yes.
And when they get into these 20-minute long meetings, when he gets into these 20-minute long meetings with a bunch of CEOs, which includes the CEO of IBM, BlackRock, Jeff Immelt of General Electric, Goldman Sachs, and Kohlberg Kravis Roberts. Now, these are people who mean business. They're going to ask him difficult questions, and rhetoric and talk can only get you this far.
Yes.
So now Mr. Modi would be expected to really present a very credible plan on what is it that he's going to do differently. Yes, the sentiment is up. Standard & Poor's has upgraded us,
Yes.
which is great. But going forward for the next 2 to 3 months, everybody, every investor is going to be watching India and
Right.
Mr. Modi very closely, and his pitch of increasing the share of manufacturing
Yes.
in countries' GDP from about 10% to 25%. Now that's a big promise, because
Right.
a whole host of laws and regulations are related to this. You're talking about land acquisition, archaic labor laws, you're talking about tax reforms.
Right.
So there's a lot to do, and does Mr. Modi and is his cabinet, as in, I mean, are they geared
Okay.
and are they prepared to take on the challenge? That's where Mr. Modi will have to
I
do
think
a lot of
that's the
convincing.
main point here. It's no longer just going to be about rhetoric. He isn't speaking to an audience that's just eating out of his hands, as you rightly pointed out, like Madison Square Garden. These are people who mean business metaphorically and literally, and they are not going to take rhetoric.
Shiv, one more
as an
point I'd
answer.
like to
Quickly,
make here.
quickly,
Now,
yes.
with China and Japan, he was able to secure $55 billion of investment. This is all government,
Yes.
government promising investment. But in America, the game changes completely.
Absolutely.
The government
It's
will not
corporate
promise
America.
investment.
Yes.
It's private companies,
Yes.
private sector that he'll have to convince.
And that's a completely different
Very
game.
different,
It's not going to be anything like doing business with Japan or with China. Shweta, thanks very much for getting us your perspective on that story. We'll be keeping a track of it. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, is, as we speak, on his way to Washington, D.C.